Hello, good evening. As usual, thanks for coming. We have a few questions to answer. We will try to fit into 1 hour. So I remind you, you come to this live session every Friday at 6 p.m. Moscow time. You ask questions, I answer them. First question: as a manager, do you inevitably practice mainstream management that you hate, such as holding daily stand ups and team building events when your company has a typical corporate culture? Uh, That's a very good question. Indeed, if the company has a corporate culture and you have basically no choice what to do, then you have to do what they ask. But still, uh, I've been a member of such. I participated in such situations a few times, and every time I try to minimize the amount of this management nonsense and the damage to my brain in case of this management setup. So they ask you to, large companies. We shouldn't blame them for this because large companies they have, I think they have no choice what to do. They cannot practice proper management. They cannot practice the best management practices which we believe exist in the world of project management. They deal with huge number of average or below than average people. So the majority of people who they manage, they are lazy, they are incompetent, they are basically clock watchers, as they're called. So they're just sitting in the office waiting for the workday to finish, and they just collect the paycheck and they go home. So they're not interested in what the company is doing, is what the projects are about. They're only interested in just collecting the money from these companies, basically taking what the company can provide and just running away. So they're not actually there for any kind of creative work. So they're not interested in work. The company has to deal with this large amount of people, and they cannot find great people in such a huge amount as any large company may need. So they hire what they can hire. They can hire the average people, and then the practices which are oriented to proper management, they cannot be applied to those people because we would have to fire most of them. We would have to let them go, and again reduce the size of the company to, I don't know, 10 times or 100 times. And then if the company gets that smaller, then it's no more a giant company. It's no more an enterprise. It's again a startup. So yeah, and when I end up in this situation, and I try to manage the way I want to manage, but it's hard. In a large company, they enforce you to do the management they like to do. I hope I answered your question, but I don't have an answer. There is no answer. Yes, in a large company, you have to do what they tell you to do, but you try to minimize the amount of damage which that kind of management will cause to you personally. Have you bought an apartment in Moscow, or are you renting? If you didn't buy, then why? Well, no, I didn't buy. I'm renting. I don't think in general, it's a good strategy to own property in any country right now, in any place, in any city. It's more financially effective. It's more, what to say, it's safer to not own an apartment, but it's safer to rent. It's just financially more effective, so it's cheaper. Let's put it this way. Next one. Meta has unveiled another image generation service using artificial intelligence. How soon do you think artificial intelligence will be broadcasting from TV screens instead of humans? Well, I think very soon. I think maybe now already we have some sort of AI which is generating content for us, not maybe broadcasting it, not maybe presenting the images of people talking to us through the TV or YouTube, but I believe that certain amount of content is definitely being generated by AI, and I don't think it's bad or good. That's just the new reality we live in, and we will have more and more of that because it's in most cases right now AI is smarter than humans, and it's more effective to employ computers to generate content for us instead of relying on people. So just we just maybe we will have to create AI which will protect us from the content generated by another AI. So AI will defend us from fake content generated by AI, and there will be some kind of a war, AI against AI, and we will have to have some sort of robots or filters installed locally on our computers, which will check what do you see, what do you read, how much AI is there, how much is it true what they say, is it a fake content, is it a fake news, or it's a real true news, some kind of, and maybe we will even pay for that. Maybe it's going to be some services which we'll have to hire and spend money on them in order to filter the information which is coming to us through news channels, and then, or maybe we will just start ignoring that flow of information, because which is actually happening also now, because people pay less and less, I think, attention to the information flow, to the events which are coming to us through the news media. If you compare the sensitivity of people now and the sensitivity of people 50 years ago, sensitivity to bad events, to traumatic events, to some dramatic events which are happening in the world, then I think 50 years ago people were way more sensitive. They paid way more attention to what's happening around them in other countries. Maybe because the flow of information was thinner and they were getting less events. There were less drama on the screen. But now there's so much drama. There are so many events, and they are specifically selected to be dramatic on the news. So we're seeing less positive events and way more negative events, intentionally or not intentionally. But I think it's just journalism. Journalism doesn't care about the public health. The journalism cares about profit, first of all. Journalism is looking for drama, is looking for something interesting to the story, to show you what kind of interesting story is about. How interesting could be the story about some new factory which is built somewhere, which is going to produce new cars, or there is a new building the new bridge or the new building that somebody built there, and which will help people to live better life. It's kind of boring type of story. A way more interesting stories, there's a fire in the forest somewhere, or there's somebody shoots somebody in the synagogue, and there's 20 dead people. That's an interesting story. That's the same as in Hollywood movie, the same they show us in the news. And that's what they do for a living. That's how they're trained to be journalists. They're looking for the story constantly, and the story is right there. So, but because the channels of delivering the information to us are so effective right now, they just deliver that news right into our ears, and we just listen to them. We watch that on the YouTube, on the Telegram channels now, on the email. Well, now email is not so popular, but they're just coming to us, and our skin gets thicker and thicker. So we care less and less. We just basically don't care if there are 20 dead people in some place and somebody shoot them. So who cares? It's just not so important for us anymore. And the AI will try to solve these problems. So the AI will generate even more dramatic stories to us, and we will and we will get even more careless to that kind of information. It's this situation is escalating, I think. So to answer your question, whether Meta is unveiling, whether this is artificial intelligence, like it's coming. Yeah, that's it. Next question. A popular opinion that happiness depends on relationships with loved ones, with family, etc. I know you think different. What's the happiness in your opinion, and why? Well, yeah, I wrote an article in my blog post about happiness where I said that, in my opinion, happiness is about solving problems, is about going through the challenge and winning the challenge and overcoming something. Going through some struggle and then getting the satisfaction as a winner, and that's I think what is happiness. And there are philosophers who believe the same, but at the same time there are philosophers who believe the opposite. They say that the family is the happiness, and the comfort zone is happiness, and staying in a safe place and together with people who love you and who you love, and that's your happiness. Well, maybe they're right. This second category of philosophers, maybe they're right, but uh, I don't think so. I mean, there are many, could be many attitudes to happiness. There could be many opinions. So I'm expressing my opinion. You may like it, or you may have your own opinion. But in my opinion, happiness through relaxation is something that should be not a happiness, but the pause is an activity which you use to fill the pause between your struggles. So you are born to fight. You are born to um, to get into trouble and then get out of the trouble, to see the problem and to fix the problem, to see the world is not perfect and to improve the world. That's what your mission is. That's what you're born for. And when you do that, you get tired, you get damaged, you get hurt, and you definitely need some time to relax. And this is what you need your family for. This is what you need your children. This is what you need your loved ones in order to relax you between your fights, in order to prepare you for the next fight. I'm not talking about the military conflicts. I'm talking about the fights. There could be a fight with a software. So you're writing a software and you cannot do it because you don't have the skills. You don't know how to do that, and you need to go through this problem. You need to learn how to write code in a new programming language, and you're too incompetent right now to solve this problem. So you need to get more competent. You need to study that subject. This is the struggle, and you are in the stress. You're in the stress zone at that moment. You don't like yourself maybe at that time. That's okay. That's the way it should be. That's what you're born for, to be at that kind of a trouble time to time. And people who, and the comfort zone which you build around you, have to support you in this, but not the other way around. You don't do this in order to spend time with the family. Instead, you spend time with the family, you relax, you enjoy your life in order to get prepared for the next move. But if you don't have the next move, if you don't have anything to fight with, then your life will be, I believe, will be miserable. Your life will be empty. There will be nothing. I mean, just having a family. A cat can do that. A dog can do that. Any animal, I don't know. A mouse can do that. It's just something which is given to you. It's like living life in order to eat food. Of course, you eat food. That's a basic mechanism which you need in order to function. But it doesn't make you a human being. Something else makes you a human being. I hope I answered your question and didn't offend anyone. Do you miss Soviet Union? Another question. No, I don't think I miss Soviet Union, because when I was in Soviet Union was not in a good shape. So what I remember from my childhood, what I remember how Soviet Union looked at that time, that was not a pleasant images to remember. So we didn't have the basic uh, goods. We didn't have the basic clothes. We didn't have the basic food. We didn't have the basic education. Well, for education, I can't complain, but we didn't even have the basic computers. So when I was a kid, I wanted to study programming, but we didn't even have computers at schools. While in America and in other parts of the world, they already had computers. They already had Apple computer. They already have Microsoft's operating system. All of that already existed. But in Soviet Union, we didn't have access to that. And I remember when I was a kid, that was like I was in the maybe like something like 14 years old, 15 years old. I wanted to code, to write programs, and in order to get access to the computer, I had to go to an IT center, the computer center in the university, and then ask for permission. And they were giving me permission like once a week for just 1 hour. And when I entered that, they didn't allow me to use the diskettes, the disks. They didn't allow me to use that. That program was not installed. That was not allowed to use. So there are many restrictions there, and I was really frustrated because of that. So my education, my learning path was kind of blocked by the regulations, by the deficit of the resources which we had in Soviet Union. So I can't say I missed that time. Definitely not. But I know that there were other time in Soviet Union when I wasn't even born, when it was long before my time. That was maybe like 40 years before I was born. And at that time, or 30 years before, at that time, the situation was completely different. And then and that time, Soviet Union was quite great country. I'm talking about the time of Stalin and the time of after the Second World War, and then the time before Stalin died. And then when Stalin died, according to historians and according to what my parents and my grandparents are telling me, that the Soviet Union started to collapse after Stalin was gone, and then the Soviet Union was started to go down, down. And when I was born, it was already in trouble. So basically, Soviet Union lost the war against America, and it was losing this war during a quite long period of time. It was not just a lost in war, just in a half a year. It was not an aggressive military conflict. I think, unfortunately, if that would be a short conflict, which would resolve just shortly in a few months, I think it would be better for all the people who lived in Soviet Union. But the conflict was long, was lasting for many, many years, and maybe 50 years or something. The Soviet Union was being killed and damaged by the countries which surrounded it, and eventually it died. That's my perception of history, and according to the stories I hear from people who are much older than me. I'm finishing the fourth, I believe that's the bachelor, fourth year of bachelor. Um, Now I work as a middle level programmer. Uh, what should I do to develop my career next? It's quite typical question people ask me almost every time, every Friday. I come here. People ask me this question: what to do in order to grow up my career? Uh, I think the best way to grow your career as a technical expert is to make something technical. So make some products and try to stay with some specific technology, with some specific product, with some specific direction in the tech. So uh, don't think about the popularity of technologies right now. Don't think about money. Let's put it this way. Of course, money is important, but I believe when you ask yourself a question, how to be successful on a perspective of a lifetime, the biggest mistake you can make right now when you're 22, 23, 25 is to thinking about becoming rich right now, becoming rich when you are 23. I suggest you to agree to yourself that you're not going to be rich until you are 40, for example. So give yourself 20 years for preparation. So we're being fed with stories about Elon Musk and about all these startups and about people who get rich when they're 25. And these stories, they spoil us, they damage us, the young generation. They give the image to these people that it's possible to become rich when they were 25. While for the majority of us, for 99.9999% of the generations, it's impossible to become rich when you're 25. And most people turn into gamblers. So most people listen to these stories and they just decide to put their life at the table, to bet their life on something, and then they expect the bet to return. And when they are 35, they realize that they lost the most valuable time of their life, and there is no way to get it back. And when they're 35 or 40, it's too late to start learning something because you become too lazy. You already got two kids. You already got the baggage you already have on your life, and it's very difficult to start from scratch. It's very difficult to say to yourself that now I am nobody and I'm going to be a JavaScript programmer from scratch. So give me the book, I'm going to learn it, and I will go to work as a junior programmer step by step. And then when I'm going to get to 60, then I will be rich. It's going to be super difficult to say that to yourself when you're 40. But when you're 20, just say it to yourself. I'm not going to be rich until I'm 40. I will invest into my future success for 20 years straight. How are you going to invest? You're going to select one direction Pick one direction, pick one strategy, and they just invest into it by learning, by making something, by writing about it, by making your CV, by building your profile, element by element, by something which, imagine what you're going to be when you're 40. So build this image, put it on the wall. Just draw the resume. There's a CV of you when you're 40. And at that time, think, who will give this guy $1 million for, I don't know, for something? Who it's going to be? Why these people will give this big amount of money to this guy? Who is this guy? So imagine yourself and then try to get there. Try to be that person. That's what I would tell myself if I would be able to jump back when I was 20. I would try to deliver this message to myself. Unfortunately, I also made the same mistake I'm telling you about. Next one, Elon Musk demands Bob Iger be fired after Disney removed ads from X. Is Twitter turning into an autocracy? Well, I don't mind Twitter or anybody to be an autocracy. I actually like when companies or any groups of people are managed in the way Elon Musk is managing them. Well, I don't believe Elon Musk is actually the guy who is managing. I think it's something else. So I still believe that Elon Musk is not a decision maker. He's just a front man. He's just a guy who pretends to be the decision maker. But let's imagine he is the decision maker. In this case, I do support this style of management where one guy says what's going to happen and forces everybody else to listen to him, not just propose and then listen to opinions and then according to the opinions changes the decision, but manages in a dictatorship style. So I'm the boss, you just do what I say. If you don't like me being the boss, you just change the company and find another company. If you are with me here, you listen to me. The boss may be wrong, but he's still the boss, or she. So that's I think how any management should be organized. If it's done differently, then it's only encouraging the negative how would you say, the negative processes inside the company to flourish. If you don't have the dictatorship style, if you don't have the autocracy, if you don't have the leader, the person who makes the decision and stands on this decision and protects and defends this decision and makes sure that people actually do what the decisions actually act according to the decisions, if you don't have that, then the people, the worst people inside the organization, they will get in charge. They will start controlling the situation the way they know how to do. And they will do it not in a very nice way, not in a nice way, because the worst people, again, they will get into power. Not officially, but not formally, but informally. So these people will be in power, but you will not understand who is in power. So anyway, I don't mind him doing what he's doing on Twitter. It seems that he's actually making the platform more healthy. Because before that, before his time, like 1 year ago, the platform was in total disaster, in my opinion. So they were blocking people for having their own opinions, and they were thinking at that time that it is a private company, and because of that, they have the right to say who is right, who is wrong. So they were blocking, I don't know, Donald Trump, for example. That's the most obvious example. They blocked Jordan Peterson. They blocked many famous people for just expressing their opinion in a polite way, in a proper way, but the opinion was different. And Twitter made a decision, was making decisions, who is right, who is wrong. And every complaint about that was ended at the claim from Twitter that it's a private company. So what do you want? You come to me on my platform. I built this platform using blah, 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 my own money. So my decision, I'm the CEO of the company, so I make a decision. I don't like Donald Trump, so I just block his account. Don't I have this right? Imagine you build a platform, you invested into development of a software, you installed the servers, you created everything, and then somebody joins your platform and starts saying something which you don't like. What do? You just block the account. You're not going to pretend that you're open for any opinion. But I think it was wrong at that time, 1 year ago, when Twitter was acting like that, because Twitter actually is not a private company. Twitter is way bigger than that. Twitter is a product of the entire society, not our society, not Russian society, but let's imagine we're part of American society. So the whole American society, the whole nation, the entire country, they invested into creating of Twitter, not maybe financially. Some of them actually gave money to Twitter because it's a public company traded on Nasdaq, was trading because before Elon Musk took over it. But the entire country was supporting the growth of this platform for like 20 years. And then at some point of time, the CEO or the owners of the company says, no, 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 now it's our company. So apparently it's capitalism. Apparently it's our territory. I think it's not really true, not really accurate to say it this way. But now we have Elon Musk. He says the same. He also says it's my company. I do what I want. But at least his approach to managing the company is more democratic, is more not democratic, but more open to different opinions. So he unblocked many accounts. He unblocked Donald Trump, even though Donald Trump is not texting anymore. But he unblocked Peterson, for example, this famous psychologist, and they are tweeting, and they are now doing what they were doing before. So at least he allows both sides of the society to express their opinions. So I think he's doing right. I think this platform, this Twitter or X, will be okay. Next question, which programming language most used in company or industry? Just go to TOB ranking list, or go to Stack Overflow survey, or go to GitHub. I don't think it's the right name, survey, but something. So they do annual review and they publish the list of languages which are the most used. I think right now the top language is JavaScript, and Python is close to it, and then maybe Java is not in the top 5, as I remember, something like this. Next question, what do you think about lying about your commercial programming experience? Well, if you're talking about interview lying when you get a job, then I said it many times, I don't mind it. I think it's only reasonable to do it. It's okay, fake it till you make it. That's the principle of the majority of American startups. That's how they grow up, and that's okay. I think if the employer doesn't have the skills, doesn't have the ability, doesn't know how to check your real experience, doesn't check your real skills, then it's their problem. I mean, they're grown up adults, and you're an adult, so you have a commercial relationship. You have a trade. You have a deal, and in this deal, we have, I think, the morality aspect here is not in the current capitalist world, in the world where everybody is a potential enemy of everybody. Then why asking this morality question all of a sudden in the interview? Next question, what do you think about DevOps? Does it make problem for programmers to study DevOps? Maybe it's better to focus on the development in a narrow area, and don't think about DevOps. Well, I think that DevOps is a mandatory skill to know for a programmer. If a programmer doesn't know how the product is delivered to customers, then it only makes it more difficult for the programmer to understand how to develop the product. I actually think that DevOps and programming must be united together. So this separation of programming and DevOps was reasonable 30 years ago, when we had programmers and we have system administrators or server administrators who knew a lot of things about how to configure the server, but they didn't know how to write the code. And the opposite, the programmers didn't know how to configure a server. There were two completely separate disciplines of study, and it was difficult, really difficult, to combine them, to know at the same time how Linux machine works and how to write code in Java. But now the complexity of programming is way smaller, and the complexity of system administration also way lower. So now to configure the server and now to write a Java code is relatively simple activity. It's simpler than it was 30 years ago. So now we need to join that to these two disciplines and have just one, I believe. So when programmer says, I don't know what is DevOps, I don't know how to install it, it's not my job, which I hear quite a lot. I hear programmers saying there, I don't take it as a professional answer. We shouldn't do that. We must understand how the software is being delivered. CI, CD, DevOps, all of that. What do you think about Scrum framework? Does it have future, taking into consideration its current popularity? Scrum framework. Well, I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think people now use any frameworks. That was a hype maybe 15 years ago, a hype of frameworks. So everybody was talking about frameworks, Scrum, Kanban, Agile, something. They were so important to put a label on what we do in our team. But now, to my knowledge, most teams, they just do daily stand-ups. They just break down their work into sprints, and they maybe have a backlog, or as they call Scrum board, where they put the labels with the names, and that's it. So they just use something super primitive, some very primitive style of management, and call it and put a label on it. They say we do Kanban or we do Scrum, just for the fun of it. So I don't think it's actually a Scrum framework. I think it's just. I was at the. I can tell you a funny story. This morning I was talking at the one conference, and I was telling them about project management and risk management. So I was suggesting how AI can improve our project management in the area of risk management. And I asked the audience. There were maybe 100 people in the room, and I asked them, how many of you in your projects actually have risk registers or risk lists? So do you formally identify the possible risks which may happen in your project, which is a crucial component of a project management? So it's impossible to imagine any project management without risk management. You basically don't do project management if you don't analyze risks. And how many people raise their hands out of 100 people in the room? And we're talking about a conference where people are the IT people, the people who are responsible for project, for coordination of projects, for being in the projects. I wasn't asking only the project managers. I was asking everybody, like, do you have these mechanisms in your project? 2 people, maybe 3 people raise their hands out of 100. So it means that people don't have project management at all. We just don't do it. We just let our projects go their way, just their logical way forward. If something good happens, that's good. If nothing good happens, then okay, we change the project, we'll lose some money, who cares? We just switch to something else. People don't suffer. Programmers don't suffer when projects fail. That's the bottom line. That's the summary of the current situation. We programmers don't care about the success or failure of our projects, because nobody blame us. Nobody punishes us. Nobody tries to terminate our contracts because the projects fail, which actually happened again 30 years ago, when programmers were not so many of them, and there were not so many tasks for programmers. So if you fail the projects, then nobody going to work with you anymore. Now look at the situation around you. Look at your friends, look at yourself. How many times you actually lost your job because the project failed? You may lose your job because you do not attend the office on time, or because your boss doesn't like you, or because you don't like the people who you work with, or because you get a better offer from another company. That's why people change their jobs, but not because they fail projects. So, answering your question about Scrum, I don't think we use it. We just do something and call it Scrum. Um, Next question. Spotify is going through massive layoffs. Don't you think AI is already starting to replace humans? No, I don't. I don't think it's already happening. I don't think AI is ready to replace anyone. AI is barely ready to give us a few hints as programmers, but we are not there yet. We're not ready to say that AI can do uh, at least a small task alone without a human intervention, without an assistance from a human. AI cannot write code. AI cannot fix bugs. Well, it can in a way that you ask something for ChatGPT and ChatGPT says yes, there is a bug in this line, but that's it. So there is no product, there is no packaged service which you can ask which you can ask to review your GitHub repository and fix bugs over there, and then it magically fixes all the bugs and actually doesn't make mistakes. We don't have this service yet. Maybe we will, and I hope we will, and quite soon, but not now. So all these layoffs which are happening, they're not about AI. It's just speculation. It's mostly about, in case of Spotify, maybe they're just losing the market, the market segment. They're losing the market because of Apple, for example, which is quite popular with the music store and other services. So that's why Spotify is out. For example, Spotify was very popular in Russia, for example. Now we have Yandex Music, which is way better than Spotify by quality, by speed, by everything, by design. So Spotify just lost Russian market, all of it. So and together with Russia, they lost many other countries which cannot pay them, for example, which don't listen to them, which are switched to Yandex. So that could be the reason of layoff, but not the AI. The next question: the AI model execution becomes faster and faster. Will it replace classical algorithms and data structures at solving most of programming problems in the future? Well, that's an interesting question. Will it replace classical data structures? I think that in general, these classical problems you're referring to, they already are out of the market. So we don't solve them in our daily work. Like just yesterday, Elon Musk posted a funny picture on Twitter where he shows, definitely not his picture, but he reposted it. So he shows the complexity of mathematical formula which people study at the first grade at school, and then the complexity people study at the eighth grade in the school, and then what they study in the university. And then finally, the final picture, what people deal with when they go to the office. And there's a simple Excel spreadsheet where they calculate the cost of supplies which need to be bought in the office. So it's a primitive calculation, number plus number plus number. So that's really true, and it's really sad. So we are being prepared as programmers to solving some complex problems, to solving some algorithmic tasks. We read uh, large books about algorithms and data structures and this and that. But finally, when we get into the office and we start working, we don't need that because the majority of these problems already solved. So people already wrote these libraries for compression of the data, for packaging and unpackaging, for data optimization. Operating systems already ready. Database management systems, they're already there. We have almost all of the problems, the basic problems are solved. Yes, of course, we still want to improve. We still need to. We still want to make something better. Some software still needs to be created, but 30 million people, programmers in the world, don't work on these problems. Maybe 1 million of them, or maybe even less, maybe 100,000 of them actually work on algorithmic problems. The majority of programmers, they just take the library, take the Spring framework or something like this, and put it together, write a number of controllers, a number of views, stick them together, and then boom, there's a mobile application and it works. Everybody is happy. They get their salary, and that's it. So AI is not the trigger of this degradation of our skills. It's just happening because we already done with the majority of problems. AI will, but let me improve my statement. Even though we solved those problems, now we have more interesting problems. Now we have the question of how to get these building blocks and stick them together and put them together so that we move to a higher level of abstraction, so that we solve the problems which we didn't even think about before. And here, AI may help us even more. Uh, so I believe that this trend of taking low level complex algorithms away from programmers will continue. And yes, I think you're ready. AI may help us there as well. So I just said that AI is not the cause, but AI will help this, will help uh, to remove programmers from the picture. So programmers will do something more high level, and low level problems with the algorithmic tasks and that kind of things and jobs will be done by AI. So to summarize, I think you're looking for a suggestion. You're looking for advice. I think that learning the algorithmic science, learning about data structures and algorithms, it's waste of time. You're wasting your time if you're doing this for fun, just to be educated. You can do that, but you're not going to use it in your real life, and you're not going to become a successful programmer in the next 20 years if this is your specialization. In the majority of cases, maybe 1 out of 100, yes, you will. But we're talking to all people. So if I address my message to 99 people, not just one person, but 99, I would say, don't do that. Do something more high level. Don't invest your time into solving problems which already most of them are solved. You will be just finishing solving some amount of problems, and that's not going to pay you well. Next question. It's a degradation. 10 years ago, we had a team for testing, team for deployment, and QA team. Now we have only developers who should do all the tasks by themselves. Well, kind of, yes. I think that testing, deploying, QA, so it's kind of it's reasonable, it's logical that these disciplines they merge because the complexity of them decreases, I think. So they are becoming more higher level, and because of that, one person can understand all the aspects of software development, software engineering. Next one, you are researcher of programming approach, but you known mostly as Java user and mentioned you're not interested in functional programming. Why so? If you can grab a lot from functional programming. Well, I do know functional programming to some extent. So I wrote some code in Clojure before. I even created some languages long time ago, functional programming language. So I love functional programming, but I find it more fun to write code in object-oriented programming languages because they are closer to reality, because they model the reality in a more reasonable terms. Like, for example, in reality, you have a car which is moving on the road, or let's say a car in the garage, and you're modeling, you are developing a mobile application for managing a garage of cars. So a car is an object, a driver is an object, an order is an object, an invoice is an object. It's hard to imagine that a car is a function, a user is a function, an invoice is a function. It just doesn't fit well into the understanding of the way we're supposed to write code. So we're supposed to model to the real world, to create abstractions in the programming language which represent the things from the real world. And a function which is called a car, you need to be a programmer, not a business person, to understand it well, to live happily with this abstraction that the car is a function. So you call a car and something gets back to you. It's kind of the functional programming is good for, I believe, for low level, system level programming of quite small and the supposedly very algorithmic problems. If you're talking about something more business oriented, something more close to users and to solving business problems, then object oriented programming was invented correctly, and it actually helped a lot of people to actually object oriented programming. We must be thankful to object oriented programming for the majority of things we see now in the IT world. The majority of mobile applications, the majority of web services, websites, the majority of AI, including AI, most of these things, they are created, and they have, when we have them, because of object oriented programming. Functional programming is a niche programming approach. Uh, it's not just I believe so. It's just I'm just stating the fact. So I'm less interested. And why I'm less interested in functional programming, second reason, is that functional programming is doing well. So in functional programming, they have no problems. They have no problems, in my opinion, with design. They have no problems with the quality of code. They have no problems with the clearness of their code. They are, first of all, the functional programmers are quite way smarter than object-oriented programmers, and the design of their languages is way more logical, is way more disciplined than what we have in Java, for example. Java is a mess, and any object-oriented programming language is a mess. So people do whatever they can do. They don't understand what are the abstractions. They don't understand how to compose objects from smaller objects. They don't understand encapsulation. They don't understand polymorphism. They don't understand, in most cases, nothing. They just understand that this you call from here to there, and boom, the program works. In functional programming, they need way more education. You need to understand the principles of functional programming, and only after that you start creating something that works. In object oriented, the story is different. So I see that my help may be needed, and I may be helpful for object oriented programming. For functional, I have nothing to say. They're just doing all right. Second question, Apple plans to build an iPhone manufacturing plant in India. Does this mean that relations between the US and China are escalating, especially since Wall Street is also selling off its Chinese assets? Well, I think, yes. I think China, United States, they're not friends, as they say. They are splitting the world into two camps, into two worlds, basically. And obviously America is trying to move, and Apple is trying to move its manufacturing places to other countries. But I'm not sure India is going to be a friend for longer. So maybe they have to move to Europe, or maybe they have to move to America. So I'm surprised they're not moving to America. So they still, you see, still Apple understands that if the manufacturing, the production plants will be in America, then iPhone maybe will cost $10,000, not $1,000, but $10,000, because people in America are the white people who are not really interested so much in doing the hard work. They're more interested in the management work. I'm saying white people in quotes. So there are different nations there, but in general, the American people are, in my opinion, they are in a higher level of development of the civilization, and because of that, they're more lazy. So they're definitely not interested in doing the primitive routine work. They want to manage. They want to sell stocks. They want to write papers. They want to publish reports. They want to talk. They do the management. And people in India, people in China, they do the production work. And this separation of two worlds, it's not just the situation of now. It's the situation of the last maybe 100 years. And they were building it this way. They're building this segregation of classes, on the class of management people and the class of the white collar workers and the blue collar workers. Let's put it this way. And is it good or is it bad? It's hard to say, because these two worlds, they cannot live without each other. So America cannot survive without China or India. It doesn't matter. Like I said, if they move the production factories to America, it's going to be a collapse on the market. They don't know how to do it, and they will be very expensive. Or the other way around, if India or China will decide to make new iPhones, then it's going to be quite difficult. Well, they're making, like China, they're making iPhone that phones, they're making some electronic products, but we do realize that the majority of these products, they're just copying what they see in America. So the ideas, they're being generated by American companies, by American scientists, by American uh, universities, and American innovators and startup founders. And the territories where the majority of people are, the blue collar workers, they are just trying to copy or sometimes steal or sometimes replicate what they see in America, and they build it locally as well. So if we block this process, if we just disallow, for example, Indian or Chinese companies to just get access to American products, then have they will have big problems. They will not be able to continue developing their products. So we need some sort of partnership between these two worlds. But at the same time, uh, it seems that the worlds are um trying to get away from each other, which is uh, it's hard to analyze this situation and say, is it good or is it bad. I'm just describing you what's happening in my, as how I see it. But to say that I think it's the positive trend, I cannot say that. Is it a negative tendency of uh, moving two worlds in different directions and trying to become enemies instead of allies? uh, I think we can say it's also bad, because how long it may stay like that. It was okay like 30 years ago, when people in China barely could read and write, and in India as well. But now it's not the case. Now Chinese people, Indian people, there now we have universities, we have educated people, we have the level of culture, the level of science is getting up, and very fast. And these people in China, for example, they're not anymore interested to be the second world, to be the country of the second world or maybe third world, like they were 50 years ago. So they are starting to complain about the situation, and it's quite dangerous for the balance in the world, for the stability of the world, because it was quite stable, the situation. Like the managers are sitting here, and the workers are sitting here, and everybody knows its place. But now these people who are supposed to, I'm exaggerating now, but just to build you the picture. So now these people who are supposed to to use a hammer every day, like the whole day long, and these people are supposed to use computers, and now the people with the hammer saying, no, 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 I don't want to use the hammer anymore, I want to use a computer. That creates a misbalance mm, in the whole balance of power. And we may, if they don't make a deal somehow, if they don't stabilize the situation somehow, then we may have bigger problems, and including military conflicts, including serious economic troubles. So it's dangerous. Next one. How to explain business that usually the application robustness is inverse proportional to the complexity of requirements? I have yet to see someone willing to listen. Uh, well, that's a good question. I I would suggest to start thinking from how you start explaining the situation. You're asking how to explain business to the business. What's the point of explaining them anything? So what is your goal? So what are you trying to achieve? Assuming that you're asking this, I can assume that you are an employee sitting inside the business, and then you're trying to go to your boss and explain something to the boss, or you're going to some customer maybe and trying to explain to the customer that the question is, why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve? You're trying to save their money. You're trying to optimize the process. You're trying to, what's the what's the objective of this? Uh, I think you're just trying to swim against the current. You're trying to fight with the enemy which you never can win. You can never beat that enemy. They just the entire world is developing the software and spending money into certain mm, using certain practices of how to do that. And millions of programmers already proved to these people, to all the people around you, that this is how it works. You just explain what you need to be done, and then programmers do it, and you expect them to do it right, and they fail, and you invest more, and they fail again. And this is called tech business. This is called IT business. And then you, just one voice out of thousands, you're saying, no, just listen to me. You need to develop the software in smaller parts, in smaller modules, in smaller components. And that's how we will have better results, because we will reduce the scope. And that's why reduce the complexity. And that's why reduce the release cycle. And that's why you will get smaller product with less functionality, but faster. And you will see it, you will use it, and then we discuss the next module and the next. And every development will be self-sufficient. It's going to be individual projects. We're going to form an individual repository. We're going to form a new team. So we're going to move smaller projects from smaller projects to more, to next project, to next successful projects, and so on. Look at what Google is doing. And I just recently had a lecture for students. I was telling them about monorepositories. And I was giving them examples of Google, Facebook, and many other large companies, which are proud of having monolithic repositories with billions of lines of code staying in one repository. This is what the industry is doing. In my opinion, it's insane. In my opinion, it's just an obvious indicator of a poor management, of poor software engineering, of everything is done wrong. But that's Google, and they're proud of that. They write papers about it. They are saying that we have like something 2 billion lines of code in one repository. And the size of this repository, this and this amount of gigabytes or whatever, or terabytes. How can you swim against this trend? It's Google. So your customers, they will tell you, no, we don't want to do it in small products. We want something bigger, and something that works, and something that that looks great at the beginning. So ask yourself once again, why do you want to explain something to the business? In order to what? To do what? To save their money? What's in it for you? If they save money, you're going to get less. So maybe it's better for you to let them spend as much as they can, and increase the complexity and decrease the robustness, because the less stable is the application, the more money will be coming your way, because you will support that development. I mean, it sounds morally wrong, but that's I'm trying to make you happy. I'm trying to make you, if you want to fight against this, write a book. If you want to explain something to the business, write a blog post, write an article, or write a paper, record a video, make a speech at the conference, and then show this to your customer. If they listen, you're lucky. If they don't listen, just be it. But that's, I think, how I would do it. So I tried also to explain to customers. I was trying to convince them, to educate them, and then I stopped. I decided that's it. I don't want to do it anymore, because I waste my time. I better write a book about it, and then just give it to the customer. If the customer is smart, they will read. If they're not smart, I'll just basically take their money, give them what is possible to give, and forget about them. So that's my answer. Next one. What do you do usually when subordinate programmers in your team didn't like your EO-driven code reviews and argued each comment? I will use statics anyway. Well, I fire them. I try to. If I cannot, I make their life miserable by asking even more questions, by being even more picky on their code, and then they quit. That's what I learned over the last 10 years of working with, I don't know, maybe more than 1,000 programmers who actually sent me reviews, and who I responded to, and who, because of my responses, they decided that I am not a reasonable person, that they cannot work with me, and they quit. So that's, I think, the only way. You cannot convince them. It's very close to the previous question. You cannot convince them. You cannot teach them. You cannot improve them. That's the waste of time. Just write a book, give them the book. If they like it, they work with you. If they don't like it, they can find many other companies where people have different attitude to the coding style. They have different opinions about object-oriented programming, and that's it. So I learned to myself that I am only interested to work with people who are interested to learn from me. So when somebody is sending the code to me, I do the code review. It means that I am the teacher, they are the students. If I send the code to somebody and they do the code review, I am the student, they are the teachers. So I want to work in a group with people who are ready to respect me as a teacher and who I am ready to respect as teachers. If somebody is not ready to respect me as a teacher, if somebody is having a different opinion about some approaches, then there are people, some people, they have different ideas. Sometimes they join the team and they don't understand what I'm saying. They don't understand, for example, why static methods are bad, but they're ready to learn. They're ready to listen, and they learn very fast. They listen. I give them the links to the paper, to articles. I give them the links to the proper information. They learn fast, and in 2-3 months they start understanding what I mean, and they become good programmers in my how I understand good programmers. But it takes 3 months at least if they are willing to learn. Okay, a few more questions and then we're going to finish. Google's artificial intelligence presentation was practically a dud. How can they afford it, and what besides bureaucracy is preventing Google from overtaking OpenAI in the AI race? Yeah, that was a funny story. It just happened yesterday when they presented this Gemini, which is supposed to be a competitor to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, and they presented a fake video. So in the video, something is happening. I watched the half of these videos. It's pretty funny, but of course it's just a demonstration. So it's not a real example because there is no, on the video, there is no answers. There's no interaction with the Gemini system. It's just an illustration of how it may work. It's interesting. I don't really care about this fake or not fake. Google, of course, is trying now to make a good face. They're saying that we did it on purpose. So just to demonstrate to you, just to show that this is how it may be, so that you get interested, and so on and so forth. But it doesn't matter. I think that give it another half a year, give it another year or two, and they will have it. So it's just the AI is now improving dramatically fast. It's going faster than I think any other invention which I remember in my life, and maybe all of you remember, and maybe the humanity remembers over the last 100 years. So this AI is moving crazy forward, and it will be smarter and smarter and smarter. Just because they put more power there, they put more energy, more money into building these models, and they improve them. So we're supposed to we will definitely have Google as a competitor. And about overtaking, I'm not sure it's going to be overtaking. I think that I think it's going to be, this AI will become very soon a commodity thing, something which anyone can access to, and something that any large corporation has. It's like internet. The internet was something very funny like 40 years ago, something which very few people had access to. And then eventually it became a commodity. It became available to anybody. Just any person can have internet right now with a very high speed. And many companies, telecom companies, are involved in this game, but it's not a game anymore. It's just a normal routine business. It's like supplying water or supplying food or supplying heat to our houses. That's the same as supplying electricity, supplying internet. So in about 5 years or maybe 10 years, it will be supplying AI to our houses. So every one of us will, on our mobile phones, on our computers, will have some sort of AI assistant, some sort of AI provider of AI intelligence, of artificial intelligence, as a box or as a service. And we will just be paying for it like we pay for mobile operators, like $10 a month, and that's it. So I just pay $10. Is it going to be OpenAI, or it's going to be Google, or it's going to be Yandex, or it doesn't matter for me. Like, it doesn't matter for me what kind of mobile operator do I use right now. I just buy it and I don't care like which one is cheaper. They're all the same price, approximately. They try to compete, they try to promote themselves, but who cares? It's just a commodity. I don't really care, but I did care. I remember 20 years ago, it was so important. What kind of operator do you have? What kind of mobile phone? Well, now still mobile phones are still important. What kind of mobile phone do you have? But again, give it another 10 years, and it's going to be not important what kind of mobile phone, not important what kind of operator, not important what kind of AI you have. OpenAI or Google, doesn't matter. That's my prediction of the future. Now, one last question, and that's it. Somebody is saying something wrong with the sound. I don't know why. Okay, let me pick one question and we're done. Okay, this one is funny. I am now on creation of Java subset with EO in mind. Java O. There won't be statics, nulls protected, but will work with Java libs. Do you think it's a good idea? Just lint is not an option. Well, it's a very good idea. This is what I thought Kotlin would do. Actually, Kotlin is something that you describe, but in a different direction. So they also use Java, well, bytecode as a basic, as a foundation, and they build their own language, which reduce the amount of features. Well, they introduced some other features, but they made a different syntax for well-known Java code. If you can make something similar, but take Java and reduce the amount of features in Java, call it Java O, it's an interesting name, then I think it would be interesting. How many people will use it? That's a separate question, but maybe many. So I definitely like this idea. As soon as you have it, send it to our website. You know, we have a website called elegantobjects.org. So find that website, and you can post your language when it's ready. Post it there, and I will try to help you to promote it. So that's it. Thanks for coming. 1 hour is over. I hope I answered your questions productively. Hope you get some new knowledge. Thank you. See you next time in 1 week. Bye bye.